Before you do,
it's already going.
Okay, I was just going to say, it's all right. Go ahead.
All right, and we're live here with Rollo Tomassi. I'm Anthony Johnson from 21 Studios and the 21 Convention. Rollo Tomassi is one of our upcoming speakers at the 21 Convention 2017. He's actually the only speaker giving 2 full talks at the event. Rollo, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me at the show.
Oh, at the event. Hell yeah, man.
Event, yeah.
Oh, I should mention, too, that your main website that people can visit you at is therationalmail.com, and you're on Twitter at, I think it's just Rational Mail, right?
At Rational Mail, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, glad to have you on, man. Not only for the podcast, but for the event. Super excited to have you as a speaker, supremely, as Nick Cloud said.
Well, I'm kind of glad to be, getting back to Orlando as well, because I lived in Orlando for about 8.5 years, up until about 2013, and then I ended up migrating over to Nevada. So.
Socrates and I were joking about that a few weeks ago. We were like, how the fuck? I lived here for years for college, and he's lived here for more than 10 years as well, 15 or something like that, 20. So we were here at the same time. I just had no idea you were interested.
I know. I have had the blog's been active since 2011 too.
Yeah. Yep. I left town in 2010, so I just missed that. But anyway, for a lot of people on our channel do know what Red Pill is, but a lot of them don't. Partially thanks to Andrew the Private Man, who spoke recently at the convention back in October. But for guys who don't know what Red Pill is and don't know what the Rational Mail is, what you do, can you kind of give them a synopsis of it?
I am one of the 3 R's of the manosphere. At least that's the moniker I've been given over the years. I have been in what is now known as the Red Pill community, or the manosphere proper. I've been writing since, I want to say 2001, 2002, when I started. I was a moderator at the SOSWAV forum, and I think the Red Pill as a community or as an online entity really sort of gets maligned these days, because everybody has decided that they want to, claim ownership of what the Red Pill is, and whatever that may be for them, whether it's their political ideology or their social ideologies, or their intersexual ideologies. To me, the Red Pill is and has always been about intersexual dynamics, and that is what I have written about, both at SOSWAV and on my blog and in my books for almost 14 years now. So if anybody knows who the 3 R's are, it's myself, Rollo, Roosh, and Royce, who unfortunately is not really Royce anymore. It's Hartiste, Chateau Hartiste, and I think the proprietorship of that blog has been taken over by a collective of writers, but they all pretty much carry on in the same sense when it comes to intersexual dynamics. He's gotten very, very political and very social, and in recent years, and I think that's probably a result mostly of the fact that the original blog sort of changed hands back in 2009. So there's that, myself and Roosh, and I would say we're probably the old men of the manosphere at this stage.
Okay.
But Red Pill, to me, anyways, like I said, is originally about intersexual dynamics. It's about just unfiltered, raw truth about human nature mostly, but focusing on women's nature and men's nature and how those natures sort of interact.
Well, on this point, how does Red Pill differ from, say, PUA or like MGTOW, other movements for men that are in similar areas?
Honestly, I think that the Red Pill sort of crosses into all of that. Some people will probably disagree with me because they want to say, well, Red Pill is just these guys who are just these angry dudes, and they they're just these angry misogynists who got burned by a woman back in the day, and now they're just venting. And that is probably the furthest from the truth that I can think of. If I were really a misogynist or I really hated women, I would not bother to do any of this or bother to write what it is that I do write. However, I will say that pickup artistry is mostly, actually, I believe, where where the red pill originated from was pickup artists in the early days. We're looking at pickup artists like Mystery, to a lesser degree, Neil Strauss. I think Neil Strauss was really just sort of a bystander and just was the chronicler of really other pickup artists who were part of that that collective of guys that if you've ever read The Game by Neil Strauss, those are I want to say they're the groundbreakers. There's guys that came before them.
Ross Jeffries.
Yeah, Ross Jeffries.
Yeah.
There's guys that came before that, and even before then, there was still, you could look in the back of a Penthouse or a Hustler magazine, and you'd see some ad for, how to pick up girls, and how to interact with women, and long before the internet came around. Obviously, there was game before that, but just nobody called it game, and it wasn't really as formalized as it's become. But I would say that the pickup artists of, I'm just going to say the very late 90s into the early 2000s were sort of the forerunners of the red pill. And I've got a post on my blog called Evolution of Game. And I kind of go into this in a little bit more depth, where the guys would go out there and their whole purpose was just simply to get the lay or get the number or to kiss clothes or to get the fuck clothes. And now we had the internet, and we had internet forums where we could all compare notes. And now guys from all over the world could say, hey, I'm in, Sao Paulo, and the girls here, are like this, and this is what I have to deal with. And then somebody from Amsterdam can say, hey, over here in Holland, this is what girls are all about. And some guy in Louisville, Kentucky can all get together and compare notes as to what was successful for them and what wasn't. And this sort of, I don't know, kind of dovetails into how I got involved, because back when I was, I never really had a red pill moment per se. It was more of a gradual thing, but I can remember reading Mystery Method, and I can remember reading some of the guys, particularly on the So Suave forums, which has been around since, 2001. I remember reading just all about game, and I happened to be at university at the time, and I was minoring at that point in behavioral psychology, and it was pickup artistry, and it was what would end up becoming the red pill is what made me decide to double major. And so I realized I was never going to, well, at least I thought I was never going to make any money off of having a psychology degree, but I did it because I was very interested in it, and I wanted to really fully understand, psychology and how it worked. But
now, did your relationship with the cluster B woman influence the degree in psychology, or was it intentional?
Yeah, that was really unintentional.
Okay.
I like I said, when I was going to college and I was going through all that, I was reading up on Mystery Method. I was reading up on pickup artists and the early game guys. And it just struck me that what they were saying was very much in line with what I was learning about in behavioral psychology and personality studies. And I was really, and even to this day, I still see the guys who are in the pickup artist community as sort of the experimental side of the red pill. And I think that if there's a definition of the red pill, it's the theory behind game, and it's the reasons for why game works or why it doesn't work. And it goes into a lot more than that too. I mean, I don't really specifically talk about religion or politics or even sociology so much, but if it has something to do with intersexual dynamics, and it is in a religious context, or if it's in a social, an acculturation context or a political context, then yes, I'll talk about it then, and we'll go into that because I'm of the opinion that all energy is sexual. It's anything that we do as people is influenced by our hindbrains, first of all. And not to say that we can't rise above that. We can, obviously, but I really think that a lot of people would rather us all think that we're all equal and that we're all these higher enlightened beings, and we're not subject to our baser instincts, when in fact we very much are.
Yeah, this is where you get into equalism, the religion of feminism on your blog, which I love. I love how you use that term.
So Yeah, that's actually that's sort of a good segue there. I mean, as far as equalism, the social side of things, much of that is again rooted in intersexual dynamics and what I call feminine primary social order, which is what I believe we're in right now. And I realize that for people who are unfamiliar with my work or unfamiliar with the red pill or whatever, it's a very, let's see, hotly debated topic that we live in what is a feminine primary social order rather than the masculine or the the man's world social order.
Saying that would be like everything is femme correct today, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just sort of the undercurrent or the undertone of pretty much everything that goes on in society. I mean, we can talk about any particular topic in society that has to do with women. Like we can talk about the pay gap, or we can talk about how Hillary lost the election, or we can or we can talk about why it is that it takes women less time to get over a boyfriend and get back into the sexual marketplace than it does for a guy.
Yep.
There's so many different areas of why we are in a feminine primary social order.
By the way, you're getting a ton of very, very over-the-top positive comments on the YouTube channel.
Oh.
We'll get into the questions later from there. But
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah.
Rollo, I love you, dude. Rollo's the best of the best. Rollo's book is truly awesome. So they're just lighting it up.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll tell you another thing is that I've only ever done one other live appearance, and that was at the Man in Demand conference in Las Vegas in 2015. And I am still to this day very much humbled by meeting people, or having people email me and say, "Hey man, you saved my life," or "You really turned me around," or "You helped me dodge a bullet," or like when I've had people at the conference would just come up to me and say, "Hey man, as soon as my son can read, I'm giving him your book." And and for me, I mean, my day-to-day life does not consist of I mean, I interact with people every day, but it's usually like, "You rat fuck son of a bitch," instead of this appreciation or this love and this. I would just say, I have to take a step back and really just say, hey, thanks to everybody who has benefited from the work that I've done.
That actually brings me, it's a good segue. Mm-hmm. The next thing I want to talk to you about was your decision to speak at the 21 convention. You wrote a whole blog about this just a couple days ago, but it was not a quick decision for you. You actually looked into it and thought about it for a few months.
I know, and you were actually directly involved in this too. So yeah. I think just in the interest of full disclosure, yep. I had Tanner Guzzi, who was actually one of the, he's from Masculine Style. He was one of the speakers at the Man in Demand conference, and he hit me up and said, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy Anthony, and check out this 21 conference or convention." And
Tanner's pretty fucking cool, man.
Yeah, and so he sent me the links to the YouTube videos that he had done, and he said, "You should really check this out." And I think I was maybe just peripherally aware of the 21 convention at that time. I think that once we had done the Man in Demand conference, I had a few people on my comment thread say, "You should check out the 21 convention." And
nice.
So you got some good positive feedback there, and then you got a little bit of negative feedback because, for instance, I've read reviews about some of the speakers at the past 21 conventions, and I sort of did a little bit of research. But by that time, I think it was you'd called me and asked me if I would be interested, or you'd hit me up on Twitter or something, and so I was just kind of had some reservations about it because I think you wanted me to come speak at the one that was in November or October of last year.
October in Miami, yeah. Or yeah. Andrew the Private Man spoke up.
Yeah, and I'm good friends with Andrew. I'm good friends with Tanner, and so I'm like, well, these guys are telling me to check it out, and so I did, and then I went and looked at some of the speakers, and quite honestly, it just sort of gave me the impression that a lot of the speakers there were what I called purple pill, and It means that they're selling, it seems like a sales pitch, or it seems like they're selling the idea of being able to get your dream girl, or to somehow achieve these fantasy blue pill idealistic goals with just being, it's almost like, I want to say it's a new age kind of man up and you'll get the girl kind of thing. And I've always taken guys like that to task. I've got at least two posts on my blog. One of them is even called The Purple Pill. And I see guys like Tucker Max, for instance. Tucker Max is my favorite punching bag, because he was such a great, he was fun to read back in his college days. And I wouldn't say he was necessarily red pill, but he was somebody that people like to follow along with. And, and then he got married, and then suddenly he realized he couldn't turn a buck, and decided to go back into the, male, masculine improvement market. And obviously at the behest of his wife and his now new kid, he had to go and find some way to do that, but he couldn't go back to the old ways. And, he was very apologetic for the things he had said. I mean, publicly on I think it was a talk show that he had just basically did this 180 and just backpedaled on everything he had done up to that point. But yet he was still trying to sell the idea of being able to achieve these blue pill goals and do it all with, red pill awareness and red pill consciousness. And I've always been of the belief that when you go red pill, and when you are completely red pill aware, you need to give up on those hopes, on those blue pill hopes, and replace those with more realistic goals that are in accord with red pill awareness. So when I see guys like Tucker, or I see a guy like Neil Strauss is another. He is just completely backslidden, from the days where he was, on top of his game at least. But I think that's also another thing, is that you can still be very blue pill, and you can be red pill aware. You can be very very beta and still be red pill aware. You can be blue pill and still cling to those cling to that idealism, but you even in the context of knowing red pill awareness and knowing what the real truth is with women's nature and intersexual dynamics and everything else, it's still this clinging to a hopefulness that really needs to be abandoned.
This is part of what I love about your work and the perspective you write from. Because, I mean, Rollo, are you a single bachelor just living it up, just slaying pussy, or do you have a family and a daughter?
No, I have a family and a daughter, and I have been married for 20 and a half years right now, and I've raised a daughter from infancy to 19 years old. And I have mother-in-laws and my own mother, and I've got lots of other women in my life that I have to deal with, and I believe I am more effective in dealing with them because I am red pill aware. I always tell guys, and I'll just restate this for the record right now, is never use my my marriage or my lifestyle as a model for your own. I'm very cautious, and I'm very conscious, I guess, of guys trying to sell anybody a formula. And I'm not in the business of selling formulas. I'm not even in the business of making guys better guys. I'm in the business of other guys, other men making themselves better men, because they have an awareness, and they have they're coming into a new reality and a new consciousness because of what they become aware of, and with when it comes to red pill and when it comes to intersexual dynamics, they take it upon themselves and apply it to themselves. And I've always said that the red pill is not one size fits all. There's not some 12-point list of a 12-step list to get from being a chump beta to being this uber alpha. In fact, I would be a little bit cautious if that was what you were planning to do as a guy with what I write. My main concern is always to be as truthful and honest and open, and just even when it hurts, even when it sucks, even when it's a kick in the teeth, just to take that and use that to better your life. And I think the real problem that guys have is they still want to hang on to the blue pill idealism. They still want to be able to say, okay, well, can I still please believe in a soulmate and one itis and still be red pill? You know, can I still? And the answer is no, because the reason that you even believe in a soulmate in the first place is because you have blue pill conditioning and you still haven't unlearned that.
You know, one of the most profound things I read from you when I first found your work was you applied a sexualized or genderfied, if that's the right word, application to love. You actually differentiate based on biology how women love and how men love. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I found that
sure.
fascinating.
Well, and actually, I'm not the first person to do the hierarchies of love, but I think I'm probably the first one to, I don't know, just come up with or, you know, conceive the idea that women's concept of love is different from that of men's concept of love. And a lot of this I'll get into when I give my my hypergamy talk, but it's a lot of people will. I have several posts that sort of outline this, and the problem I'd like to clear up before I even get into this is that a lot of people say, well, you know, Rollo Tomassi, he said that women can't love. Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that women are very, very much capable of love, and they're very much capable of having a very deep love for the men who, you know, are the men that are in their lives and that they feel or that they perceive are, you know, are worth their attention and worth all of that.
Yeah, that optimize their hypergamy.
Exactly. But you have to understand where women's concept of love comes from, and for lack of a better term, comes from a sense of opportunism. And what that means is that because of women's hypergamous nature, because of women's you know, biological and psychological and neurological differences from men, their concept or their approach towards love is different than that of men. And what I mean by that is that as far as opportunism is concerned, is that hypergamy, which is influencing every woman you talk to right now, your mother and your grandmother included, are always looking for a better than situation when it comes to men. And when they are, you know, as young as 5 years old to as old as 85 years old, you will see manifestations of hypergamy. And because of that hypergamy, it is founded on wanting a bigger and better deal and wanting the best man that they can possibly get. In fact, they want a better man than they actually deserve. Yep. And so that's the opportunistic side of it. Then for men, again, it's my belief that men approach love from an idealistic side of things. Men tend to view the world from the inside out, and then women, on the other hand, experience the world from the outside in. So it's
I don't think I've seen you write that before.
I have it. I've got a post on my blog called Idealism, and the picture on that blog post will probably spell it out for you, where it's got a man and a woman. They're on I believe it's a picnic blanket or something. They're in a park, and the man has a camera and the woman has a camera, and the man is taking pictures of the outside world, where the woman is taking pictures of herself. And I thought that was really poignant, because that is really where men and women come from as far as their differing approaches. Men tend to approach life in general as what could be. I also have a post, and it's in one of my books, called the Burden of Performance. And it is based on the idea that women simply are and men must become. And because men must become, they have a more idealistic outlook. And sometimes that gets us into trouble. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. It's great when we want to build, you know, fantastic structures and, you know, and improve the state of humanity and culture and arts and science and everything else. And that's fantastic, but it also gets us into trouble because we believe that women are sharing that same idealism. And then women have a natural sensitivity to the knowledge, I guess, that men are more idealistic, and that they can use that and put that to their own intrinsic purposes.
And do you think biology is at the root of this difference in the concepts?
Oh, definitely. Okay. First off, because men have a just raw, biology. They have a more potential when it comes to strength and endurance, and that's based on our testosterone and just having an outward ideal. We have to become
strong,
more
independent women. I mean,
well, and then when it comes to women, it goes back to hypergamy. And what I mean by that is that the reason that women are opportunistic is because they have become evolved to want a better than deserved mating potential, provisioning potential, life potential.
Yeah, they literally want to date up, right, above their own.
Well, yeah, and that's just simply part of it. They want to live up. Okay, they want to be able to ensure the security of themselves and to ensure the security of their kids. I mean, again, it goes right back to fundamental evolution, where women aren't going to be looking for a weak man. They're not going to be looking for a weak breeding partner. They don't want a less than breeding situation. They want a more than. Hypergamy does not seek its own level. Okay, yeah. So they're always looking for the bigger and the better. And what that instills in women is a sense of doubt. And hypergamy is very much based on doubt. And I think you've probably seen the cartoon of the woman who's like naked and she's on the side of the bed, and sleeping in the bed is Superman. And her first thought is he the best? Is he really the best I can do?
I haven't seen that, actually.
Yeah.
And, is that on your blog or somewhere else?
No, it's all over the place. I mean, I'm sure there's half a dozen people in the chat right now who probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But it sort of, in a nutshell, encapsulates this doubt, or this hypergamous doubt that women have. And so even when they have the best, even when they have some sort of something that they believe will keep them content, or will quell that hypergamous doubt, they're still thinking about it. They're still saying, is this the best I can do? Or if Superman slips up, if Superman loses his job, if Superman if he pusses out for something or backs down from a challenge, whatever that may be, that's going to stoke that doubt. And that hypergamous doubt is what sort of colors most of what constitutes a woman's hindbrain. So when we talk about, like, say, shit tests and things like that, that is really a subconscious manifestation of this doubt. So when a woman gives you shit, or she's, especially, I mean, I've got several posts on shit tests, but I see shit tests as coming in two varieties, and one of them is an active variety and another is a passive variety. And the active variety is the one you get from the girl in the bar who's just meeting you for the first time, and she's giving you shit to test you, to see what your responsiveness is, and what your sub communications are going to be for a certain set of shit giving criteria, I guess. And then there's the passive version, which is something that married guys are probably familiar with, when they get a nagging wife, or they get a woman who is expressing her insecurities constantly about money, about her own security, her own kids' own security, and giving her husband or her long-term boyfriend shit tests, but they're of a different variety. Those are the passive ones. Yeah. But again, all of those come from that hypergamous doubt. And then that doubt, and just the basic biological nature of women, when we're talking about ovulatory shift, and we're talking about how women's fundamental biology, their hormones, just the way that their brain's architecture works, when it comes to the fact that women are better communicators, or they're more sensitive, I should say, to communication. They feel communication rather than men.
Women are more empathetic, right?
Yes and no.
Just trolling.
Women have a I would say, a more enhanced capacity for communication than men do. I mean, it's fairly well proven by brain scans and brain synapse tests, and we can even see that they use social media more. They send more texts. They speak more words in a day. There's any number of studies that pretty much indicate that women have a much higher capacity for communication and subcommunications than men do. Does that make them necessarily more empathetic? I think that sort of comes down to what they really want to be empathetic with. If it's a weak guy, like we were just talking about, if Superman loses his job, she can be empathetic up to a point. But I think it's a social convention, and it's one that women love to constantly stoke themselves. Is that women are more empathetic than men. I don't believe that for a second. I certainly don't believe they're more sympathetic than men.
And this is a really
common exactly. And they don't have some supernatural ability for empathy that men don't. They just have a broader capacity for communication than most men do. So I think when we talk about this, this supernatural capacity for empathy in women, I think what we're really talking about is just their capacity to communicate differently than men.
Yeah, I want to take a step back to the what I brought up a few minutes ago about the 21 convention, your blog post specifically. There was actually one line in there that really stood out to me, and I felt in a way kind of proud of. You said that in speaking to me and confronting me about the purple pill past of the convention and the speakers and the issues, you said you're really surprised when I was like, yeah, I completely agree. And I was very blunt about it, or very simple about it. So you talk to me a little bit about what surprised you or what went into that?
Well, like I said, you were at least open to listening to what I had to say, especially when it comes from, a very otherwise harsh red pill background. When I see purple pill dating coaches, or when I see, like we were talking about, like Neil Strauss and guys like that, who basically want to turn a buck off of selling you the idealism that you're used to. I mean, it's a law of power to appeal to other people's fantasies, and to be able to sell them on an easy, quick formula to better their lives, to get the girl and to get their dream girl and to live happily ever after with 2.4 kids and a dog in the yard. And I just, first of all, if you are red pill aware, you understand that what I've just described there is a blue pill idealistic goal, particularly now in today's, westernizing societies.
That guys have been told and sold for decades now.
Exactly. So I was a little bit concerned that I would be co-branding the rational male with something like that. I was also it's funny because it's about the same time that I was becoming a bit concerned about co-branding myself and the rational male with guys like people at RSD. Okay. I'm very conscious of where my, for lack of a better term, a brand, I mean, it's what it's become. So that's just what I'm going to call it right now. Yep. I don't see what I do as a product or anything like that. I don't do this for a living, and I don't, I sell books, but my primary job is working in advertising, marketing, and branding. I own, I have ownership stake in 2 liquor brands, and I promote probably 24 more. So I'm pretty set. I'm pretty good for money right now. So that's another thing I think a lot of people misconstrue about me, is they think that, Rollo Tomassi, he just goes and sells books and he goes and does seminars. I'd like everybody to know that this is the first and only one I'll be doing this year. Will be the 21 convention. Yeah. However, after talking to you and after you explaining to me that you even yourself were sort of having a red pill epiphany at the time.
Oh yeah.
And sort of having I don't know, for lack of a better term, a red pill unplugging from, what you had been used to with your.
Part of it was actually that the Nicholas Cloud guy, the guy that you put the video of. He actually wrote a very detailed email to me after the Under 21 convention Tanner spoke at. And it was just very detailed. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give this guy a shot. And the minute I found your work, I was just blown away. So,
well, thank you for that. But then you and I sort of developed at least a talking relationship, and we've been going back and forth. And you were, open enough about your experience with your ex-wife for however long that lasted and all of the things that went along with that.
Yep.
And I think you even yourself were expressing that, you know, you were having more of a red pill bent to your thinking and to the way things were. I don't know. I'm sure you probably started writing or reading my books or reading me, you know, more actively back around that time.
Yeah, I found your site in 2015, and I was very curious. I actually put you on a potential speakers list to research and then confirm, or say what I wanted to do with it. So I'd been aware of it for a couple of years, but it wasn't until 2016 in the summer that I really got into it.
Well, like I said, and you know, I'm very conscious of who I'm going to pair off with, but you know, and particularly when the past speakers were, and not all of them, but a good majority of them were what I would consider purple pill.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of this co-opting of red pill ideals to sell, date coaching and stuff like that. Like when I look at the works of, say, like Mark Manson or Evan Mark Katz, guys like that who are, in my honest opinion, are just simply pandering to their audiences and then simply using the more palatable parts of red pill awareness to, sort of sugarcoat their own perspectives, or their, they don't want to offend women because, like I said, we end up talking about a feminine primary social order. So anything that would be unflattering to women is left out, and anything that would possibly get guys into, into falling in line with,
look what happened. Look what happened to that state senator from New Hampshire the other day.
Right.
Huge takedown of him. So that was pretty brutal.
Right. And then again, that's sort of another a whole other ball of wax to unravel right there. But I think that's, when we're starting to see the red pill sort of enter into the mainstream right now.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about like purple pill guys, I'm really saying that these guys who are just, cherry picking the parts of the red pill that they think will resonate with women, because they want to be the guys to tell men to man up. And here's enough of the red pill to tell you to man up, but don't man up too much, and don't be, don't become too aware, and don't become, don't get angry like those red pill guys are. Just,
well, in your opinion,
accept
too,
enough of it to get it down.
In your opinion, too, purple pill is very dangerous. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I think that what happens is, when we're talking about purple pill life coaches, for lack of a better word, we're talking about guys like that. It ends up sanitizing the red pill. And I think, like when we were talking just earlier, when you're asking what my definition of the red pill was, a lot of people will just simply say, well, you don't own the red pill and you don't own the terminology, and really it just means truth. Well, yeah, okay, fine, but then whose truth does it really become? I see a lot of guys on the alt-right right now who want to say, I'm red pilled, or I'm woke, I'm red pilled. And all that is just saying that you believe that strongly in your ideology that you accept the truth. And really, what is the red pill? When Morpheus offers the red pill or the blue pill, well, the red pill is the truth, right?
Well, actually, this is a really interesting topic. So right now on the internet, red pill is being used for a whole bunch of different ideologies.
Yes.
The red pill you refer to is rooted from 2002, So Suave or something like that.
Yeah, I can show you So Suave posts and forum threads where we started using. Well, actually, we didn't even call it red pill back then. We called it unplugging.
Okay.
And we actually use the term the matrix all the time without even really implying so much as the red pill. And then I think probably around 2002, 2003 is when people started using that term to say that they had woken up from their blue pill conditioning, or their feminization conditioning. I mean, when I talk about the blue pill, I'm really talking about our popular conditioning for feminizing men, demasculating men, emasculating demasculation of men, and the masculinization of women. When we talk about egalitarian equalism, when we look at just a lot of the standard tropes and just the boilerplate that we get from feminists, a lot of that goes back to our conditioning. We get that from a very, very early age. I mean, right now, there are certain words that little 5-year-old boys aren't allowed to use on the playground. They're not allowed to look at a girl, for any length of time. They're not allowed to be little sexists, because they're being taught in a way that that is pro-female and what I call feminine correct. And so I can talk your ears off about that what happens is then that becomes the blue pill, and the red pill is waking up from all of that and really seeing intersexual dynamics for what it is, in terms of sociological, biological, evolutionary psychology, things like that. And I know some people have a really tough time with that. I happen to think that evolutionary psychology is a very primary underpinning of what the red pill really is. Yeah. But, nowadays I'm hearing, people who are, devout Christians are saying, I'm red pill because I'm Christian, or I'm red pill because I'm I've even seen, what some people on the left and liberal leaning side of things saying that they're red pill because they really know the truth, and it really loses its meaning and it gets kind of watered down.
Well, that actually brings up the red pill documentary that had nothing to do with red pill.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I think that'd be it.
Yeah, for sure. I it's funny because I just retweeted, I just dug up a tweet that I had a prediction about the red pill documentary for whatever. It's not really even a documentary so much, but it was a documentary by a film producer, a director, and a star of the movie, Cassie J. And
what a surprise!
And what a surprise! Who was also I would presume she probably still is, but maybe not to the same extent, a feminist, and decided that she wanted to do an expose or a documentary on the men's rights movement. And of course, the first people she meets is Paul Elam and Dean Esme, and then moves on from there to guys who I used to have a lot of respect for. Dr. Warren Farrell. In fact, if it was anybody who kind of woke me up, it was him back in the early '90s. But even this guy is very much attached to egalitarian equalism, very much attached to being, having men become more perfected feminists, but from the sense that they believe that there can be a true parity or a true equality amongst the genders or amongst the sexes. I'm not of that opinion. I'm of the opinion that there is complementarity between the genders, but there is no equalitarian equal parity between the genders. Yep. But anyway, so they took it upon themselves to title the documentary "The Red Pill," and naturally.
What do you think the purpose behind that was?
Honestly, I think it's a co-opting of what the red pill was initially.
You think it was deliberate?
Oh, definitely. Okay. I definitely think so, because Paul Elam and the guys at A Voice for Men have completely just disowned the red pill and completely. As far as TRP, and as far as the side of things that I come from, they want to villainize us. They want to demonize us. They want to say that if there's any kind of problem with men in the world, and it can be related back to the red pill, they're more than happy for the TRP Reddit to take the fall for it. However, they're more than ready to capitalize on the popularity of the idea or the name or the term red pill. So as long as red pill means what it is that they want it to mean, then it's okay. But as soon as the red pill gets some bad press, like it is right now, and that guy you were talking about in New Hampshire, and what is he, a state senator or a congressman or something?
I think he was a state senator or congressman, yeah.
Yeah, and is supposed to be some very active member on the sub. Well, suddenly they never, we never knew ye. And I think it's interesting also because, when I look at Cassie J, she fits the profile for all of the men's rights movement guys who just want to have, feminists go and fight their battle for them, and probably necessarily so, because in today's society, we have to have women speak for men because they're the only ones whose voices we actually take seriously right now. Anything that Cassie J would have been done had her name been Carl J, wouldn't have got out the front door. But because she's a woman, she's taken seriously. And now, granted, she's having a hard time with the free speech and getting her movies shown. But the fact of the matter is that the documentary had almost nothing to do with the men's rights movement and everything to do about her and everything to do about her personal journey of self-discovery. And it was exactly what I predicted in August of 2015. I said, this is going to end up being all about her. And sure as shit it was. And again, the reason I know that is because I've seen it happen before. I've seen it constantly happen before. And it also fits in with what I refer to as women's solipsistic nature.
Well, the good news is I'm sure that's the last time that'll ever happen. So
yeah. Well, I think it's funny is because I understand that the next time that we have some sort of mass shooting or we have some sort of violence or we have another Elliot Rogers, we have another incident like that, I will guarantee you the first people to throw the red pill under the bus will be the men's rights movement.
Yep. This actually brings me, this is an interesting topic that just kind of came up to me as you were talking. Mm-hmm. What do you think about women like Christina Hoff Sommers and Helen Smith? Mm-hmm. Helen Smith's author of Men on Strike in particular.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware of both of them. Actually, Helen has hit me up a couple of times.
Okay.
But Christina Hoff Sommers is interesting because she ended up, she started out, I should say, as being a darling of the guys at A Voice for Men. She was really, when she was carrying the water for Paul Elam, he couldn't speak highly enough of her. But if you go and you look through his videos right now, he's got a video titled Christina Hoff Sommers is a phony or a fake or something to that effect.
He came to the conclusion that she was gynocentric, and then he went through a couple different video clips of her.
Right. Gynocentric in exactly the same way as I described that she was way back when they were relying on feminists. They've got I forget who it is, a Driver Suze, who's the moderator for the comments at A Voice for Men. When you have a feminist woman or an anti-feminist feminist, and I would point out that any anti-feminists right now are really just feminists, but they just don't like the fuchsia hair, underarm, stinky liberal feminists. They're just as feminist as any other feminist. It's just that they, go to a different church and they drink a different, kind of beer, But I think Christina Hoff Sommers, she's great. I mean, she's done the stuff that she did with, with Milo. And I thought, when it comes out there and she's speaking the truth, that's fantastic. But she's also on record for getting behind the so-called assault behind what's her name, the journalist who got nudged or something at a Trump conference. I'm drawing a blank on.
Paul Joseph Watson recently too noted that she came out against Marine Le Pen in France, who's now in the run up to the French election. And I didn't think she would do that, so that was kind of too. And
that's whether it's Christina or it's anybody else. And I know people have brought up Girl Writes What. I forget her real name.
I'm not familiar with her.
Yeah. Girl Writes What is another, well, at least she was. I'm not sure she still is affiliated with The Voice for Men, but they were their darlings for a while. And I expressed the opinion that no matter what a woman professes that she is, she still will put the sisterhood before everything else. So you can take, I think the thing I said before is you can take Gretchen Carlson and you can take Rachel Maddow and you can put them on the same show together and they will fight like cats and dogs when it comes to ideology and politics and everything else. But then you put them on together and you start making them aware of red pill awareness or any sort of red pill topic and anything that's even remotely marginally unflattering towards women, and they will come together, they'll band together, they'll drop their differences, and they will fight you tooth and nail for against everything that you're saying, because no matter what the religious conviction is, no matter what the political ideology is, it's always going to be the sisterhood uber alles.
The young Tommy Lauren's a good example of this too, right?
Exactly. Tommy, yeah. And then, she was everybody's sweetheart once, because she's a good looking girl. She was speaking the right language until she said one thing that wasn't right. And she said that she was pro-choice. Well, of course she's pro-choice. Every woman, is pretty much pro-choice in the sense that they want to be able to have the choice to choose who the father of their child is going to be. And I've said this on several occasions that abortion is really the final word in hypergamy.
Yeah.
In that really legalized abortion, safe, legal abortion, and the right for a woman to choose that isn't so much a political or ideological choice. It is a choice based in hypergamy. And once again, that brings us full circle as to, what is a red pill about? Well, we can go all the way back to how women's biology and their sexual strategy, which is hypergamy, affects everything. It affects our legislation. It affects our psychology. It affects our schools and our education. And that's once again why I say that we live in a feminine-centric social order.
That's actually a really good segue to one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about later, but we'll get into it now.
Okay.
You wrote a post maybe a month and a half called "The First Female President." So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, what that post was about, and then what do you think 48 years of Trump, what kind of effects do you think will have on the United States culturally?
Well, the first female president was a post that I wrote, and actually I reposted it on Medium just recently as well.
Okay.
But I decided that I was going to lay off politics as much as I possibly could, although I did talk with Christian before, but I was going to lay off politics as much as I could to see, how all the cards would shake out for the election. However, back in the late 2015, early 2016, I made a tweet saying that this election will be based primarily on red pill principles that guys in the manosphere have been talking about for, decades now. And what I meant by that is that the personality that is Donald Trump and the personality that is Hillary Clinton are both brands, and they're brands that we've been very conscious of for a long time. But they're more than just that. They are the effigies and the embodiments of masculinity and the reaction to that. I don't want to say femininity because there's nothing feminine about Hillary Clinton, but it's the he versus she. And it's the struggle, once again, between whose vision is going to be the one that sets the course for the country. Okay, whose vision is it going to be a he vision or is it going to be a she vision?
Yeah. And
we saw this come out during the election, but we're also seeing more of it sort of echo right now in that the idea is that the future is female. Now, that to me is has nothing to do with equality. It has nothing to do with egalitarianism. It has everything to do with female. It's female supremacism.
Yeah, it's boldface too, right out in the open.
And so when we were going through that cycle, and this is what I wrote the post about, was that it was less about who they were as people and more about who they represented, or the personifications of he and she. And
by the way, guys, for those listening, he's referring to a short, I think, video that Hillary Clinton produced a few months ago.
Yeah. It was the future is female. In fact, I'm seeing that a lot in the femisphere, where it's the future is female. And if you go and you look at what happened with the Women's March back in January, or you see the one that happened in March for the Women's Day March, or even just recently on the Earth Day, it was the March for Science, which is really the March for Women. And you look at that and you see just how upset these women were, and just how upset they are that there's not the first female president. And Hillary was the embodiment of what they expected. They expected her to win. They expected the first female president. They didn't care, who it was. They didn't care that maybe she has some kind of Parkinson's disease. They didn't care anything about any of that. They just wanted the first female president.
Clearly she had a 98% chance of winning. So
and that's another thing is that is the degree of certainty they were that she was going to win.
Yeah.
And what was it like? When she was, and during her campaign, when she was trying to appeal to male voters, she comes out with "I'm with her," or "he for she," or what was the other one?
I think he for she was a whole.
He for she was, or I'm with her, and we're still seeing that right now. I'm with her, but we're gonna reheat that and pretend like we're talking about Mother Earth. I'm with her, but it's not. It's about, suddenly all of the veneer and all of the pretense gets stripped away because Donald Trump won and she lost. In fact, that was it. They during the campaign they were saying it's her turn. It's her turn. And they didn't mean Hillary Clinton's turn. They meant it's her turn, as in it's the woman, it's the female, it's the feminine imperative's turn to run the country. And that's what they sincerely believed. That's what they still believe right now. And again, that also goes back, once again, all the way back to, who is going to set the course for a feminine primary society. And that's really what their nervousness and their insecurity and their just blanket fear is that they won't have a say, that it's impossible for them not to, but the fear is that that Donald Trump, the he, is going to change everything for the she.
I wanted to take a step back now and go back to the 21 convention. So talking to you through Twitter, you actually brought us something that I thought was pretty cool. You said that basically I'd built like a small Red Pill Summit inside of, and I didn't set out to do that. I set out to build the 10-year anniversary event for my company. But inside that, we now have, I think, like 7 or 8 talks on from Red Pill speakers.
Well, I think it's really great that we were able to get all of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse together, myself and Christian and Tanner and Goldman. And I know what those guys are going to do, but yeah, and then to get Ed Lattimore was just, I don't know, that was just a trick. I don't know how you got that, but that was awesome. And Ed, I think, is probably one of the most underrated speakers. I don't even really think he identifies himself as being like red pill, but everything he talks about pretty much is.
Yep.
And he's just he's very good from the perspective of, bettering your life and being a more positively masculine man. And that was really, he seems honest. He seems so genuine. And that's why I wanted to get on Mark Baxter's show with him when we did back in, I think it was in February. And, just talking with him and just, I'm a big fan of Ed's. I won't hide it. And then just getting Christian. I know what Christian's going to do. Christian's his pickup. Christian is game, whether that's what he gets into at this conference or not. I know where Christian is, and I know what he does.
Yeah, and Christian's actually talking on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, we'll see. There you go. And he's a good dude to talk to about it too.
Yeah.
And then there's Goldman, and Goldman he's the Indiana Jones of the red pill. He's the guy that goes to all these places, and the guy just lives for adventure. He lives for experience, and he just, he'll go out. Just if you could sit down with, I've had the pleasure of doing this, but if you could sit down with Goldman and you just ask him and talk to him about his past, experiences and the things that he's done. I mean, there's some of the shit I would not even consider doing, but it's cool to hear about it.
Yeah.
And he's very, very game savvy, very red pill savvy, and takes something and goes with it. He's like, in a sense, he's not MGTOW, but he's like sort of lives the life that I think some MGTOWs would like to live. They get on their motorcycle and drive across the country, and instead he goes and drives his car across the country and goes and meets people. And when I met him back in, I guess it would have been 2015, he just happened to be passing through Reno, Nevada, and I was here, and I said, hey, let's get together. And he had gone around, basically did the perimeter of the United States and driving and, car camping. And, he didn't have a lot of money, but he just goes out there and he does it. And he had talked to Jack Donovan just before he talked to me.
Yeah, I've seen that interview.
Yeah, and he did just this it's on YouTube and it's on his YouTube channel, but he did just a quick hit interview of me. We just sat down by this aqueduct or this, this little drainage ditch, and we just started talking and bullshitting, and it was really, really good. But yeah, Goldman's great. Tanner, of course, is fantastic too. You already know about Tanner, so it's his, masculine style and everything. And I think he brought up quite a bit of, he gave me ideas. He gave me ideas for posts when I listened to his presentation at the Man in Demand conference, because he was talking about how, and you already know this, but just how a man presents himself in the communications that he presents when he dresses a certain way.
Well, I think like you, I used to not care about the way I dressed until I started getting into Tanner's work. And the reason was I was able to get away with it by holding frame and holding court. Well, how I dressed didn't seem to matter until I got older and I started realizing this was kind of a mistake.
Well, he sort of explained some things to me that I didn't really. He gave me some dots to connect, and like in my line of work, like right now I'll be sitting at home in jeans and a t-shirt and just being comfortable. Like when I have to go out and do a liquor promo or something like that, or I've got to meet with clients, or I got to meet with distributors, or I got to meet with people who I'm doing brand work with, I'm going to wear and put on a different face and put on a different persona with everywhere that I'm going to go. And I think most people just do that anyways. We don't even think twice about it. And most guys will say, well, I don't dress for anybody, I just dress for me. And it's like, no, you go to work in a different way than you do it. If you wear a uniform, you dress a certain way. But I think what was fascinating to me was he sort of validated quite a bit of pickup artist ideas, in the sense that what you wear is part of your subcommunications. You can dress in a clown suit and still go out and run game, but you're going to be fighting against the deficit of wearing a clown suit, or you better have a damn good reason to be wearing the clown suit, and that better be a point of conversation for you, because you're communicating something with that. And I really thought that sort of opened up some ideas for me, especially when we talk about looks and stuff like that. But I just think that the lineup, as far as the Red Pill Summit being what it is, I'm glad that happened, and I'm glad I think you'll agree that it kind of happened a little bit more organically than maybe you thought it would. And maybe this is a question for you. Getting back to what we were talking about, like when I had some purple pill reservations. It seems like you yourself have sort of taken a hard red turn because of your interaction with your ex-wife and all that, and it seems like you didn't have the same people interested in doing the conversation.
Yeah, people say that, and it definitely influenced it without a doubt. But your work, honestly, one of the biggest things that helped me do is connect the dots with all of my experience with women, not just Medusa. I went out in my college years and I approached like 6,000 times, over 6,000 women. And so your work is making me look back at all that over the summer and the winter this past year. And then I have sisters, I have a mother, I have aunts, I have cousins, different friends of friends, girlfriends of friends. So it's like, your work caused me to just connect all the dots between all these different experiences. Medusa is, among those as well, and a big part of it. But it's also the other half of it. Thousands and thousands of women that I've gone out and met and slept with and all that. Not thousands I've slept with,
but you've met and you've interacted with. And I think that not to gloss myself too much, but I think that what I write,
see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I write and what I think the intersexual side of the Red Pill is really about is understanding the natures of women, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just it's great when you can use it in terms of game and a woman that you want to become intimate with. That's the primary interest of it. But I've used game on female bosses. I've used red pill awareness on getting out of a traffic ticket. I've used it in so many different ways, and I think that's really important for guys to know that it's not just about game. It's also about just living your life with women.
Yeah, it's every part of life. I think that's when you mention MGTOW guys, that's one of the reasons you want to help them, is because they can't get away from it. No matter how much you try, you're still going to be involved with the outside.
You're still going to be dealing with your mom or your sister or a female coworker and things like that. And there's still parts of the road. And I always say this about the MGTOW guys. I really think that they are far more hopeful than, like, say, the guys in the MRM, because I think that I would say that even red pill guys are technically men going their own way, because once you become red pill aware and you see, all the things going on around you, with regard to women, when you put on the red pill lens, as I like to call it, you see it in the media, and you see it in politics, and you see it in religion, and you see it all over the place. Once you do that, you become red pill aware, you're going to live your life differently. And you're going to go in a different way than you were when you were blue pill. So in a sense, if you're red pill, you're really going your own way. Where I think the guys in MGTOW, the more hardliners, make a mistake is that they just go too far. And they say, well, you know what? I'm never going to, they get caught in the anger phase, or they get caught in the idea that they're never going to measure up, or they're never going to, because it's so hard, or the requirements to meet and satisfy women are so hard, and the risks are too high, and I just don't want to do it. So I'm just going to cut myself off, and I'm never going to get back into the game. And it's just easier if I, live for me, and I put myself together, and I'm the best person I can be, and go ride my motorcycle across the country.
Yeah.
But I do think that they are far more hopeful than, in fact, if I get any MGTOWs, if I'm talking to any MGTOWs right now, it's like, I get it. I really do. I mean,
there's
I understand
some guys that have mentioned their MGTOW in the comments.
I definitely understand that. And I completely sympathize with that point of view, that perspective. It's just that I think that once you become red pill savvy, and once you become more aware of, how to interact with women from a red pill perspective and in a red pill context, I think that it becomes easier. I think that you don't have the expectations. You lose the stupid blue pill expectations of women, and you learn how to be able to interact with them in a red pill context.
Yep. So one more point on the convention that I had written down that I wanted to talk just a bit about. When I started getting red pill speakers on, particularly you, but other guys as well, with the exclusion of Tanner, everyone at the convention last year loved Tanner, and Andrew much the same. But beyond those two, who already been at the convention, it's got me a lot of heat. A lot of internal discussion between me and the speakers. So I've talked to you about that. And what was your response to that? Or do you want to talk about that?
Well, do you mean in terms of like having me there, or having more red pill guys there, and how that's affecting the old guard, or the guys who were there before?
Exactly. It's causing a lot of friction, and I'm fine with that, but I think
that sort of needs to be hashed out. I'm always for open debate. I'm always for an open dialogue. I've run an unmoderated, uncensored, with the exception of spam and like outright blatant trolling, I don't delete posts. And I make sure that people, even if there are women who just say, I hate you, Rollo, fuck you, I'll be happy to put that on there. As long as you tell me why do you think I'm a dick? Why do you think, what I've, if you feel that strongly about me, what is it that you disagree with? And I think that will, I don't want to go and just have conversations with myself. Like I said, I'm not interested in making better men. I'm interested in men making themselves better men. Yeah. And part of that process is having an open and healthy discourse of ideas. And
now, a lot of this too was kind of predictable for you, right? This wasn't, when I came to you talking about this, you weren't.
Yeah, I figured that was going to happen, and I was glad that you got some other guys, some other more red pill guys along for the ride.
Yep.
But like I said, I get accused quite a bit of, especially in RSD. I've been accused of being a professor of truthful anger, and I do agree. I agree that there are certainly some things about the red pill to be angry. In fact, that's a phase that I talk about that men go through. It's like the stages of grief when people have to accept death. They go through a definite anger phase. There's other, denial, depression, but there's definitely an anger phase, and it's very easy to wipe that off, or wipe that anger off on the red pill, because when you're transitioning out of a blue pill conditioning, or you're sort of unlearning those things, you still cling to them. You still like to believe that you can get your dream girl. Like I was saying, you will never get to blue pill idealistic goals with red pill awareness. And I think that even guys who are aware, even guys who become aware of it, they still cling to that. It's hard, man. It's hard to kill the beta, because you're literally killing off part of yourself. You're literally killing the old, I wish, women would love me as much as I love them. You're killing off that old guy in you. And that's one of the reasons I related it or compared it to the 5 stages of grief, because you're killing that dude.
Yep.
And that old dude that was inside of you.
The end result, though, is truly empowering. I mean,
right? Yeah, exactly. I think so. Exactly. I mean, exactly. But
it's not all bad, guys. It's not all dark.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And I think that the reason that I get accused of that anger is because when you are still clinging to that blue pill idealism, and when you're still clinging to that, and hoping against hope that some of that might still be true, it seems like anything that is, like I said, marginally unflattering of the feminine, or even if it's like 100% in your face, really harsh, cold bucket of truth poured over your head, you don't want to have to confront that, because it is challenging to what psychologists call your ego investments, because we're invested in this idea that, well, women and men we should be equal. We might not be equal, but we should be equal, or things like that. And when you get wrapped up in that, it's really hard to let that kind of stuff go, and it's even harder to let that stuff go when you build a business around it. And when you are like, when you are like Evan Mark Katz is another one of my favorite punching bags, and the guy essentially caters to to spinster women, and in his his self-helpers, dating coaches for these poor single 40-something women. He writes an occasional post about how guys should be more beta, or how guys should be more sensitive to them, or how guys should, but sprinkled in there is some red pill truths. And if I go to him and I say, look, Evan, you're full of shit, and here's point A, B, C, D, and E, is the first counter, the first response to that isn't anything that even sounds like a counter argument. It's, you're just angry, you're just bitter.
Which isn't an argument.
Which is not an argument, but it comes back to just simply poisoning the well when you don't have any kind of counter argument. But as far as I don't want to turn off any of the old guard, but
no, I think
I certainly will. I would certainly challenge a lot of the beliefs of the guys, and not in a bad way. I mean, I think that the real test, the true test of the strength of any conviction, of any ideology, of any idea, the test of the strength of any idea is to be able to debate it in open, honest debate, and to be able to talk about that. Because as soon as you close yourself off, I mean, we're constantly seeing these riots and shit going down in Berkeley, and they're saying, well, it's free speech, but you know what? Nobody talks about what they're talking about. Nobody goes in there and says, if you really want to fight against the fascists, quote unquote fascists, if you really want to fight against the alt-right, the anti-fascists want to fight against the alt-right. If they really wanted to do that, they would go into the debate, and they would say, here's why you're wrong, or here's why you're right, and they would have a real honest to God debate about the whole thing.
Well, that's probably going to happen any day now.
But it's easier to simply throw pipe bombs at each other,
Yeah.
And I really think that, if the guys, have a problem with me, that's fine. I'm glad you do, but just tell me why. At least tell me why I'm wrong.
Yeah. This is something I love about the convention that I don't think I've talked to you about this specific element before. To me, the speeches, it's rare there's any kind of debate on the stage, only during like maybe a Q&A panel briefly. But the way I see it is giving a talk that's on video, that's audio recorded, everything is lit, it's nice, it's premium quality. Mm-hmm. It's a window into your head and what you're thinking, and it's a window into the ideas you're presenting, obviously. Mm-hmm. But we put that up on the internet. That to me is then the debate. It hits YouTube, it hits 21 University, and then people can A, think for themselves and decide on the content, mm-hmm. but B, talk about it and hash it out. And I love that's going to happen with you, I think, in space.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in the introduction to both of my books, is that I have always concentrated my primary efforts, and I've got a third book coming out too, as you know, but I always concentrate my primary efforts when I'm in my writing towards physical print material books, because I make the least amount of royalties on those. I've got it in digital and I've got it in audio for the first book, but I always focus on the print. First of all, because I'm a designer, we're not artists by trade, but so it's sort of my baby. But I also made those books with the intent that guys would read through them, leaf through them, put their sticky notes in them, take a highlighter to whatever is pertinent to them, and then to share it and to pass it on, and to I mean, it's a pretty radical title to have the rational male on that.
Oh yeah, that was the first thing that stuck out to me about your website and who you are. That was that's a badass.
Well, it's funny is I have a lady who does my taxes, and she knows who I am and what I write and everything. But when she was first figuring it out, she's like, "Well, what book do you write?" And I mentioned something about it being the rational male, and she was like, ration, talk to my husband, and that's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I want it to do. When you're on an airplane, when you're flying out to the 21 convention, I hope you're reading my book and you have the cover displayed prominently for everyone who walks by you in the aisle.
Yep. It's funny though, when I first saw the title and got into your work later then again in 2016, I, as my own bias, I related it to what I do with the ideal man and helping men like you do, better themselves and actualize themselves to the highest that they can in this, one life they have. So to me, I just saw it as kind of a different variation of the ideal man. The ideal man is definitely a rational male who looks to reality and objective truth to make his life the best that he can. And I think your work is absolutely imperative for a guy to do that today.
I will probably, you already know that my second speech is going to be, the second talk is going to be about positive masculinity. And that's the topic of that talk. And that's also the title of my upcoming book, which is called Positive Masculinity. I have to sort of put a disclaimer out for that, in that I don't want to give anyone the impression that my idea of positive masculinity is anything like the Good Man Project. I'm not going to tell you how to man up. In fact, I'm not going to tell you what to do at all. I might give you some ideas and give you some general, ideas of what you could possibly do and how you might apply them to your life. But I don't give a roadmap. I don't do prescriptions. I don't write prescriptions because I think everybody's different, and I think everybody's situation is going to be different whatever station of life they're in, whatever age they are, whether they're in Los Angeles or they're in Bangladesh. I think there's certain general truths about being a man for sure, but I think that you can certainly take those and apply them to your individual circumstances, and that is and has always been my express purpose is to make the rational male and to make what I write, make the red pill and red pill awareness as universal as I possibly can. Like when I was at the Man in Demand conference, I had guys as old as, I think 68, 70, coming up to me and saying, "Hey man, thanks, you changed my life." And then I've got another guy there who has his dad, he brought his dad there with him. And this kid was like, I think 21, 22 maybe. And he brought his dad who was in his 50s, I think. And it's for everyone, and that's another thing is I think that the truth has broad appeal and it has a lot of applications to it.
Now, with that said, your new book is slightly more prescriptive than usual for you, right? Whereas usually you're just
a bit. And another thing is I tend to shy away. I think that the red pill should be amoral and areligious and apolitical. I think it needs to take a neutral sense because I think that objective truth is in as far as we can really be aware of it and really make it happen, or deduce what objective truth is. I think the red pill needs to be that. And I do give a little bit of advice, but some outlines for things that red pill fathers need to be aware of. I have that's one section. I've dedicated almost about a third of the book to red pill parenting and what you can do as a parent. Because I know that I get that a lot. I go, well, how are we going to make the next generation red pill? How are we going to make the next? My son is being feminized. What do I do? And so I'm gonna give ideas in this one.
I have a question on this part actually. So is that third of your book dedicated to red pill parenting? Is that just for young fathers or fathers at whatever stage of life?
Does not matter. There's several. Actually, I got several posts on it on my site too. A lot of it lot of the material is drawn from that, but it doesn't matter. I have, in fact, I addressed that a little bit for the guys who are younger fathers or have, or I should say, have younger kids as children, what they can be aware of.
I'm curious about the guys who are yet to be fathers, who are just single, out doing whatever.
Oh, well, again, like I said, it's pretty much universal for if a guy wants to be a father, it's things to think about, and it's things to consider before he says, you know what, I think I want to be a dad. Or if maybe he was sort of tricked into a pregnancy by someone, just to understand what you're getting yourself into or what's happening with that.
Yep.
Or maybe you've got a son, or maybe you've got a daughter, and you realize or you see how in his school he's being taught like a girl and being taught to emote like a woman, and taught that it's correct to be taught and be educated, I should say, as girls do, because that's really the state of most of our public schooling. And that's just for younger kids. I also get into like, well, what if my son is 15? What if my son is older? And what if he and I are kind of estranged right now? You know, I get into parts about that.
Now, have you given any thought with this section of the upcoming book to guys who might use it to sort of reverse engineer it and use it to unplug from their own childhood?
Oh, for sure. Well, I've included this in the book because I thought it was one of my more seminal posts, and I think it's very important. I have a post called Promise Keepers.
Okay.
And what Promise Keepers is it's, and you probably know a few of these guys yourself. It's guys who want to outdo their dad. They want to be a better man, quote unquote, than their father was. And in so doing, they want to not be the asshole dad. They don't want to be the alcoholic drunk dad. They don't want to be the dad that left mom. And so you end up getting sort of this, I call it, it's pretty much widely known as the Oedipal complex, and that mommy needs protection, and no matter what the real, the reality of the upbringing really was, because most guys don't know anything about the red pill, to begin with, but they certainly don't know the games that men and women play today, and particularly if mommy is bad-mouthing daddy. We already know that women initiate 70% of all the divorce. Oh, actually, over 70% of divorces now.
Yeah.
And so, when you're 15, you don't look for stats like that. You just know that dad's an asshole, and you don't want to be like him. And so I get into that a little bit. And when I was writing that, I wasn't really writing that for men who were fathers. I was writing it about guys who sort of need to unplug from that and say, you know what, maybe your dad wasn't such an asshole, and maybe they left for a reason. My parents split up, and I wasn't really aware of any of the back and forth between my mom and dad until I was, in my mid to late 20s, and that was only because I was just starting to become a little bit more red pill, and, I didn't even ask those questions, but, I didn't, my dad was a hard ass for sure, but knowing my mother and who my mother was, I could understand why he left. But, a lot of guys don't do that.
Speaking of, custody battles and divorce and things like that, I don't know if you saw, but I think earlier today came out that Alex Jones just lost a custody battle for his children.
Oh, really? Was that in Canada or something like that? Or was it?
He lives in Texas. I know that much. He lives in Austin. But even with, all of his, I'm sure he has plenty of money to hire lawyers and all that. And even with all that, he still lost it all.
There's and this goes to anybody who's listening, anybody who wants to, in the chat room right now, there's you can get the YouTube trailer on YouTube. It's a documentary called Divorce Corp, CORP. And it will really open your eyes to why you don't want to get married, and you will probably go MGTOW after you.
Well, just get a prenup. Just get a prenup, bro. That's all you gotta do.
Exactly. Right. No, that doesn't happen. It's funny because even in the documentary, they say prenups don't work. They're practically useless.
Even guys who offer them, even lawyers who are like, yeah, we do them, but I don't believe in them.
Yeah, they're happy to sell it to you.
Yeah, but
they're happy to make the money.
Yep. That actually brings me to a point we brought up earlier a little bit, RSD. Mm-hmm. So a few months ago at this point, maybe 2-3 months, I think Todd Valentine, an RSD instructor for Real Social Dynamics, put out a video on the red pill. I thought it was a complete disaster. It didn't even look like he took it seriously and put effort into it. He just made a video on it, put it out. and there it was. Talk to me about that. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, as I was saying earlier, I was already made aware that that was coming out before it did come out. In fact, the guy who I know in RSD was pointing directly to that, and that was one of the reasons I was very, again, cautious about co-branding the Rational Male with RSD. Since that time, of course, I have talked with Owen, and I don't have any problem per se with Owen or even RSD that much, but I think that RSD has been influential and definitely been a very positive force in game and understanding how to put what I would call red pill awareness into practice. I always talk about how the red pill is a theory and game is the experiment, or it's the practice, and one informs the other. So when you take that red pill awareness and that red pill theory out into the field, you use game to enact it and to experiment with it. And you take your findings, be they positive or negative or success or failure, and you bring them back, and we either modify what we're talking about, or we confirm something. I really think that in the past, RSD has been very positive about that. I do know that they are a business. I do know that they have a lot of guys who are affiliates for them. And as far as Todd is concerned, I even left a comment on that YouTube video, and you can go ahead and read that if anybody wants to dig that up. But I think that his doing so is really more of a sales pitch and really more of a need. It comes from a need to sanitize the red pill and turn the red pill into something that is more useful to him. If he can say that he conflated, I believe it was, male feminists with red pill guys, or MGTOWs. Was it MGTOWs and red pill guys? Red pill guys are just these angry, these angry guys again who have been bitter and burned, and really not without knowing much of anything about the history of the red pill. Certainly not knowing anything about myself, or not knowing anything about even Royce or Roosh for that matter. But claiming to be an authority on it, while at the same time he's trying to tell you how to go get a girlfriend and how to, simply, if you're going to get married, just get a prenup. And he's got a video out called, I think it was like how to get an instant girlfriend or some shit like that. And,
I haven't seen it.
And it's, and I understand, and this would probably even relate back to the purple pill conversation we were having before, is that I understand the want for a stable, monogamous, very blue pill fantasy of, having that girl, who's there by your side all the time. But it doesn't disqualify you from having to have red pill awareness. It doesn't take you out of the game. Well, just because you've got the perfect girlfriend. I've had a wife for 20 years, man, and she is fucking great, and I love her to death.
Beta, Rollo. You have a wife.
And I love her to death. But you know what? I don't wake up on any morning going, yeah, this is a sure thing. I can let my guard down. I can just go ahead and, get a beer belly and go out and, be a garbage man. I don't ever think stuff like that, because I know what happens, and I understand the fundamental nature of women.
Well, this brings up, I think, a good tangent. We could head off on this. What are your thoughts, if any, on RK selection theory?
I really think that's applying that to intersexual dynamics is fantastic. I mean, like I'm the first one to apply behavioral psychology to intersexual dynamics. I don't see why that would be any different. Who's really, really good at explaining the RK selection is Krauser. Okay. Nick Krauser is just absolutely fantastic about it. But I pretty much agree with it. I understand the selection pressures, and I understand population pressures. I think that to give you a little bit more visceral example of it, I have two posts. One of them is called War Brides, and then the second one is called War Brides of Europe. And in War Brides, I go into a dynamic, I guess you'd call it, of how nature has selected 4 women who have, or are more prone to, say, Stockholm syndrome, who are happy to align themselves and fall in love with their captors and for evolutionary reasons, that they had to do that by necessity, because if they didn't, they died. When an invading tribe came in and killed off a woman's tribe, he would usually kill off the men and probably a good portion of the children too, but they would leave the women alive. And the only way a woman was going to survive and fulfill her biological imperative, which is hypergamy, the only way she was going to be able to do that is to fall in love with her captor and fall in love with, with whoever it was that had just basically dominated and taken over her village. Now that I've extrapolated that into a great deal of other things, but that sort of comes back to RK theory, and particularly now in Europe, we're seeing an influx of of immigrants coming through, and the protests and the men, when we see these comparisons, these very stark comparisons, I guess, of these feminized European men versus these, swarthy, they want to say Syrian immigrants coming through at the invitation of governments that have been completely assimilated by the female and the feminine imperative. And we're looking at Marine Le Pen, who's we can talk about her politics all we want. She's still a woman. We can talk about Angela Merkel and her politics, but she's still a woman.
Well, Marine Le Pen's a woman who's not going to get the "I'm with her" push, I think.
You're probably right about that, but neither was.
Isn't it her turn? Isn't it her turn? I think it's her turn.
Who's the Prime Minister of England right now? Is it another woman?
Yeah, I forgot. Theresa May, I think.
Yeah, I think that you will see you will definitely see what I said was the sisterhood element in all of them in the upcoming years.
You just made me realize that if Marine Le Pen wins France, then Germany, France, and England will all be run by women.
Oh, and let's not forget Sweden, which has a primarily feminist-run country.
We actually ran the convention in Sweden back in 2010. Yeah.
Well, we're not going back. I was going to say, you probably didn't do it in one of the no-goes.
Yeah, Well, that's 2010. It was different back then. I'm glad I got to visit it, given that it's going to all fall apart, I guess, soon. Let's move on to another topic, unless you wanted to hit more on RSD.
No. What I was just going to say, just to finish up, is I think that I would include guys like RSD Todd as being in the same category as purple pill guys, and I think he's a really good example of a guy who knows game very, very well, but is still very blue pill, and is trying to use, once again, red pill awareness and game to get at those blue pill idealistic goals. I have it's another post, and it's another chapter in the first book called Dream Girls and Children with Dynamite. And I quote Ross Jeffries in that one, actually. And he was the one who sort of coined the term children with dynamite, because when you give guys just a game experience, and when you just teach them, okay, here, remember this, you teach them game by rote memorization, and you don't teach them why things work. You just teach them how to drive the car, right? The problem is that you end up having an incomplete education. So you can get your dream girl, but you still don't know enough about her, and you don't know enough about the nature of women, and you don't know enough about the real visceral, day-to-day ugly side of hypergamy, because you don't want to look at that. You don't want to face that, because you're so happy with the blue pill side of things, and that you are able to get your dream girl, that you're not really prepared to deal with her when she becomes a bitch.
Well, that doesn't even factor in the cluster B disorders and other mental health issues.
Yeah, and that's only once that's in a normal relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for whatever that means, but I was going to say is that's an incomplete education, and I think that when you only teach guys game and you don't teach them red pill stuff, or you don't teach them why things work, you're really hobbling them. You're only giving them one leg to stand on. Whereas if you just give them red pill theory, and if you just give them all this stuff and you say, okay, well, that's it, you don't have to go out and do anything, or, now you're on your own, that also, doesn't motivate them to go out and test these things and find out how they work. So I think that in any ideal guy, any positively masculine guy needs to know both game, and he needs to know the red pill theory. And I don't think that Todd is delivering that. I think he's just giving you one side of it and trying to blow off the rest of it, because it doesn't fit in his profit model.
Well, I don't know if I told you this, but on this point, When I found your site initially in 2015, so late 2014 and then into 2015, when I found your site, I was actually getting to the point in my life with game, with women, even being with Medusa at the time, and I realized just through the convention that the theory was kind of light, and I was very suspicious that we hadn't found yet a pre-existing movement like Red Pill that focused on the theory and got it really, really well. And that's how I found your site. As I was becoming at that point in my life suspicious, I was like, there's no way I'm the only guy in the world trying to piece this together on a broad scale. And then eventually find your site, and then eventually the Red Pill later on. That's exactly what it does.
I was given a lot of shit for making this comparison, and I in no way mean this in any mean spirit or anything like that. But if you look at a guy like Mystery right now, and you see that he is clinically depressed, and probably has been for quite some time, but he's clinically depressed and like next to suicidal. And I hope he is okay. I really do. I love the guy. I think he's done a lot of good stuff for the community and Red Pill and everything else. But he is a walking example of exactly what I was talking about here with Children with Dynamite. He's a guy who can go out there and get chicks and turn ass left and right. But he can't live with them because he's still stuck in that blue pill mentality. He's still stuck in the idea that he can get to that blue pill, Pollyanna, Disney perfect relationship with a red pill knowledge and with red pill, with just the awareness, and he just doesn't have that right now, you know.
I've heard this too.
And I mean, like I said, I don't, nothing against the dude personally, but when all you have is game and you don't have red pill theory, you're handicapped. And if the same works vice versa. So I think they are a much healthier, much more well-rounded guy. I've said this a million times before. I attribute like much of the success of my marriage, such as it is, to my understanding of red pill theory and being able to put it into practice within my marriage and even outside my marriage. And I don't mean I'm cheating on women. I mean that I don't mean I'm cheating on my wife. It means that I deal with women all the time in my line of work, and I can apply, red pill theory, be that with game or just simply being who I am, and having it come naturally. So, in my personal life, in my career life, and just things like that. So,
well, it's even influenced the way you've been a father, which I think
yes,
is huge.
I've raised my daughter to be responsive to red pill guys, which is another topic for another whole hour.
So you mentioned Ross Jeffries a few minutes ago. I was actually surprised that when I mentioned to you that we got him as a confirmed speaker for the convention this year in September, you were impressed, and I didn't know that you were familiar with him that much or anything.
I'm familiar with him enough to have seen the videos of him, I think back in the early 90s, where he was just getting run up the flagpole for, I think it was neurolinguistic programming or something like that. And if you even just look up on YouTube, Ross Jeffries, you'll see some of his old stuff. I mean really old stuff from like the early to mid 90s. And and I think he probably would agree to this. He's the old guy in the manosphere in a big way. I can't say as I agree with 100% of what the guy had gone into, but I think that he was one of the first, trailblazers, I guess. So I thought it was kind of interesting. If you would have got like Dr. Farrell or something like that, I would probably be equally impressed, even though I'm not like necessarily a big fan of Farrell now.
Yep. Yeah. One of the factors that went into actually having him as a speaker, so there's a few, but Andrew the Private Man's death, so a mutual friend of ours died, a few weeks ago. And him dying, as long as I knew him, which wasn't that long, it hit me pretty hard. And I look at someone like Ross, who I think is in his 60s, maybe close to 70, and I'm like, he looks to be in decent health, but I mean, shit, this guy could drop dead tomorrow for all I know.
Yeah, you never know. I wrote a post about it when Private Man died, and Private Man's death kind of hit me kind of hard too, only because I knew I talked to Andrew like lots of times before, before he really even announced about his eye cancer when he lost his eye. But I had talked to him privately, over the phone, helped him out with his cell phone bill once actually.
Wow.
But he was an interesting dude. And I think that he filled a niche that is going to be really tough to fill later on, because he was the guy who was there to more or less teach red pill to guys who are coming out of divorce, who are middle-aged, who think they're out of the game and think that they're fucked. And he was a good guy to talk to that would sort of bring guys back from the brink, I think. A really good guy, and I think is really a loss. I am, you know this already, but I asked Andrew to write the foreword to my third book.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he passed before he could finish it. So I am having to do a lot of really introspective soul searching about it, because I am now writing the foreword, because I want it to be a dedication and a memorial to Andrew. So the foreword of my book will be all about Andrew. And
I actually met, the last time I saw him was March 20th, and that was one of the things I wanted to ask him was how that was going, and I completely forgot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was actually surprised that it was so aggressive that it took him that quickly.
Yeah.
But I will say that it also woke me up, and you'll read about this in the foreword, but it also woke me up to exactly what you're just saying, is that you never know when it's time to go. And I was making comparisons to like the guy like Steve Jobs, who found out that he had cancer, and he decided to turn that knowledge into just this complete, crazy, manic drive to come up with, new inventions, and come up with I think he came up with like the iPhone, the iPad, different variations of the MacBooks, and just all this product that came out between the time that he found out he had cancer and the time he died. And I don't know if you've ever read or listened to the biography of Steve Jobs.
I'm a huge Steve Jobs fan. Yeah, 100%.
And there's a section in there where Steve says that he wanted to put a dent in the universe. And I definitely think he did.
Yeah.
And I think that is something really that every guy sort of needs to consider, and consider that now rather than later.
Yep.
And I would like to think that the Rational Male and what I've written up to this point, and hopefully what I write after this point, will be my dent in the universe. It's funny. It's really weird. I'd say it's a really weird experience for me to be in the middle of writing a book, because I didn't think about this in the first book, but to be in the middle of writing a book and to wonder how my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren are going to receive what I'm writing about. Like, oh yeah, this guy was my grandfather. Rollo Tomassi was my great-grandfather. And just to imagine what they'll think of it in 100 years from now.
Well, I'm actually thinking when you talk about this, not just them reading it directly, but what the consequences are of your work. What kind of impact are you going to make? The dent.
Exactly.
What are they going to actually experience face to face from your work?
I mean, I have guys who tell me that they that what I wrote saved their lives. That they put down the gun because of it. Yep. And that's anybody who knows me knows that one of the catalysts of my beginning to write in the manosphere was my brother-in-law's suicide. And if I ever have a red pill unplugging moment, if there's any sort of point at which I would say I went red pill, it was right after that, because I was just astonished by how callous the women in his life were after he was gone, and how indifferent they were to his death and the consequences and all of the things that led up to him putting literally putting a rope around his neck. Yeah. And that, before and after. And I know all of the events and everything that led up to that. And this was at a time when I was, in school, and I was, going through my behavioral psychology classes, and I was writing for So Suave. And I'm just listening to this, and even women that didn't even know him, that I had described the situation to, they were just completely sympathetic of the woman, and they could give a shit about the man who would basically kill himself because he couldn't live without, his wife, who was going to divorce him, right? And that was just amazing to me, that even after he's gone, he made no impact. He made no, the only thing they're going to remember about him is just like that he had a couple of kids. I mean, really. And it's just, and you can go at any time. I hope I don't die after this. I don't think I'm going to. But
I hope not.
What was it? I think it was Pablo Picasso who said, never put off today what you can die tomorrow having left undone.
Yeah, that actually, it reminds me again of the Private Man. He was a confirmed speaker for this upcoming event in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And then in January, he called me and we talked, and it became very apparent to me that he wasn't going to make that event no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I had thought I had another 2 or 3 events with him to produce speeches with.
Yeah.
And that's when I was looking back then in Miami this past October, and I was like, holy shit, did I luck out getting him at the event? Like I had no idea when I was talking to him about that event that would be his first and last talk ever at the event.
I know.
Yeah.
And now it kind of hits you in the gut, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's fucking intense, man. It's holy shit. The
Mm-hmm.
last thing he said to me was, make sure I live forever. I almost fucking cried, man, when he said that.
I know. I plan on it. He said that to me too when I was talking to him about doing the forward, and I said, dude, this can be your memorial if you want it to.
Yep.
He said, yeah.
Yep. So that's about all the major points I wanted to go through.
Okay.
From here.
Did you want to take some questions?
Yeah. I have a few typed up from one of my guys, and then from there we can go live. So you guys listening in live, go ahead and ask questions. A bunch you already have, and we'll go through those as well. So he wrote me a couple of them, but the one that really stuck out to me that I thought would be kind of fun to give you. You mentioned in your book, I'm not sure which one he's referring to, but one of them, that her imagination is the biggest tool in your arsenal. Can you give some examples how you have used this with your wife or previous woman?
Okay. Well, imagination, or the imaginings of women, is something I believe is intrinsic to the female nature. And I believe that in the sense that because women are hypergamous, they have to imagine what is possible when it comes to getting with a guy. I'm sure you've probably heard about, it's a common trope. It's women's female intuition, right?
Oh, yeah.
And how they're supposed to have some supernatural power to figure you out, because they just rely on their womanly instincts, and they can figure.
One of my favorite things to tease women about.
Or we refer to it as the feminine mystique, that they're these unknowable creatures that can never be figured out. And we always like to, I know what I'm dealing with when I have an old guy come up to me and elbow me in the ribs and go, "Hey, women, I guess we'll never figure them out."
Yep.
And that's when I know that you have been completely and irrecoverably, conditioned by the blue pill.
Yeah, it's like the Ray Romanos of it.
Exactly. But I think that womanly intuition is really more of an evidence of women imagining certain things. And I think it's important to remember that women's imaginings are always based on their primary directive, which is their sexual strategy. So and again, it's important to sort of break that down too, because women's sexual strategy has 2 sides to it. There's the alpha fucks and there's the beta bucks. There's the short-term sexual breeding urgency for women, and then there is the long-term provisioning parental investment side of hypergamy. So it's important to keep those things in mind, because imagination can work for both of those aspects of her sexual strategy. Okay. So when you are, let's say you're dating a woman and you've never fucked her, you've never done anything, I think one of the most important things for you to do is not to spill your guts on the first date, and not to give her your life story. I think one of the biggest drawbacks to the age of technology and instant messaging and everything else is that women are, well, guys particularly, but women are also so available to guys 100% of the time. So by the time you even get to the first date, if you've said, "Oh yeah, I grew up in such and such, I did this, my mom and dad are separated," and you just give them this life story, there's nothing to figure out, and there's no mystery to it. And I'm sure you've heard this a million times, where it's like, well, you got to be a mystery to a girl, right? Well, it does you no favors if you are giving away the farm, and you need to be something that a woman figures out. And I've said this on a couple of different posts, but there's nothing more satisfying to a woman than for her to believe that she has figured you out with her womanly intuition. And I say that in quotes because it's a myth. Women don't really have any womanly intuition, but they like to think they do. And again, that kind of comes back to their capacity for communications, because they want to imply, they want to infer things that you didn't say. And they want that more than your confirmation of what it is that they're thinking. They would rather be teased by that communication or by that interaction than have it confirmed for them.
Well, part of this too is to keep them kind of chewing on it, right? So you want them to figure out they figured out part of you, but not all.
You want to be an onion. You want to be many layers that they can peel away. Okay, that's one aspect of imagination, of employing imagination. Another aspect that works for both sides of this, if you're married or even if you're not married, is to imply but not confirm that you are in demand, that you are a commodity that other women will fight and compete with her for. So if you are not, that's why I always tell guys, spin plates, don't be exclusive with a woman. I'm not saying be a man whore and run out and just go fuck willy-nilly whoever you want. No. What I'm saying is that when you are non-exclusive with a woman and you don't commit to her and you don't want her to be your girlfriend on the first fucking date, then you are implying that you have other options and that you are a guy who at least believes he has other options. So that, of course, implies confidence. And then what I'm saying in that situation is that you can also apply that, I should say, to dread. And dread is another way that you can use a woman's imagination. To the dread of losing you, or the dread of loss of investment, really is what it is. Because if a woman invests herself in you in some way and she's uncertain of that, she's going to compete and she's going to keep herself on her toes, as opposed to getting relaxed, being comfortable. You moved in with her. There's no challenge left to you. No other girl would ever want to fuck you. So, I'm just going to relax and not have to do anything.
And so dread would be particularly important in a relationship then, right?
Oh, definitely. And I have several posts on dread. In fact, I get in trouble for implying that men should directly use dread. I think that it should be used. I think that it should be used passively. People go, oh, well, you dread your wife all the time? No, I don't. I don't go and say, hey, look, bitch, if you don't do me, then I'm going to have somebody else. I never use direct, a dread with my wife. I do, however, use passive dread, and I always have, because I've always kept myself in shape. Just my line of work, I'm around beautiful women all the time. I'm selecting beautiful women to go to my promotions with me. I'm, and even when I wasn't working in the liquor industry, I was working in gaming in the casino industry, or I was working in promotions, like entertainment promotions and stuff like that. So it was not said because it didn't need to be said. I can remember one time me and my wife were both going to the gym one time, and the front desk girl, who's very attractive, stops us before we leave because she really likes us. She was kind of a friend of ours. And she says, I just love you two guys so much. And my wife's like, why? She said, because you guys are so ideal. You guys are, this guy is so perfect for you. And she just starts giving me all of these compliments just out of the fucking blue. I mean, unsolicited. And I don't work with her. She's just a friend that happened to be at the gym, good looking girl. But because I have red pill awareness, I let it go. I didn't go, oh, baby, don't worry about it. You're the only girl for me. I didn't jump into those things where I'm trying to pacify that and be okay, have her be okay. Because first of all, I don't think she's going to be insecure about it anyways. But most guys will do that. They'll go, oh, well, don't worry about it. I know she said I was attractive, but don't worry, girl. You're the only girl for me. That they'll try to pacify and pander to those.
The subcommunication. They're truly pacifying it. Mm-hmm. What about though if you were to say those things but do so with like a wink and
right. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing is don't discourage flirting, and don't discourage the fallout of flirting, because for as much as you think that's going to get you in trouble, or you think, oh, well, my wife will leave me if I'm flirting with somebody else. You know what? Flirting. Yeah, I was going to say flirting. Flirting goes both ways. So if you're just being there and you're being a creep and you're winking and nodding, and the waitress is like going, get away from me, that's one thing. It's another thing if she's initiating it and you're flirting back a little bit. That's another thing. So again, that becomes contextual. But all of that goes back to a woman's imagination.
Yeah, cool. Next question. I like this one too a lot. What are some of the best ways to test for genuine desire when first meeting a woman?
I mentioned I've got an upcoming post. I don't have a post for this one yet. I have an upcoming post that goes into what I call the hell yeah response. And I will, full disclosure, I stole that from Mark Manson back when he actually had something good to say. The idea is that if you ask a woman to go have a drink with you, or you ask a woman, you're talking to a woman and you suggest, hey, let's go have dinner, or hey, you're making an approach, right? Maybe you're not doing it like super direct, but you're just doing it even indirect approach. The answer should always be hell yes. Hell yes, I want to go to have a drink with you or a coffee with you or whatever. Hell yes, I want to go see this show with you. Hell yes, hell fucking yes, I want to have sex with you. I want to have your fucking babies. That's what that's genuine desire. That is the first thing that you want to hear out of a woman's mouth. Now, there are guys, there are probably guys listening to this right now who have experienced the hell yes. They've experienced the, oh man, I can't wait to, can we go now? Can we, I'm gonna drop what I'm doing and let's go. That's genuine desire, okay? Anything that comes back from that, any kind of hesitation, any kind of, maybe if I did this, any kind of just, minor hesitation that comes in from that, by order of degree, that is a less, it's a less interest level. We call it IL, but it's a lower IL, and that's by order of degrees all the way back down to hell no.
Some of this too would coincide with the woman's age, right? As she's maturing over time, say her epiphany phase. Now, if you got a lack of genuine desire, but still some interest, she could be in like full beta bucks mode, right?
Oh, for sure. It's also important. I wrote about this in the second book. Is that it's important to understand at what phase of maturity that a woman happens to be in. A woman's hypergamous prioritization of the things that she wants in a guy when she's 22 is not going to be the same thing she wants when she's 42. And the priorities will have shifted because her needs and her necessity has shifted, or usually has shifted. It just depends on which path she happened to follow. I spell out a very distinct timeline for women's phase of maturation. I'm not saying that's a hard and fast rule, because some women reach different phases earlier or much later than others. But yeah, definitely, there's definitely that. But the interest level, when it comes to genuine desire, how do you test for that? You have to be aware of what the tells are and what the body language is telling you, what the subtext and the sub meanings of certain things are. Yep. Like I was saying before, women will shit test you no matter what phase you're in, no matter whether you're single or you're married or whatever. They're always going to shit test you for fitness, because there's always that hypergamous doubt.
And no matter the value difference too, right? Even if you're more attractive or have more value than she does in the marketplace.
Now, I know, just to continue here a little second, I know that there's guys right now who have experienced the hell yes, and then they experience the, well, yeah, kind of yes, or the, well, maybe if you did this, answer. And so there's guys who have that breadth of experience where that, because I've had, back in my 20s when I was a semi-professional musician, I got the hell yes a lot, okay? And then after I sort of abandoned that and I was, doing other things, and, in between meeting my wife and everything, it was maybe if you did that, or even prior to that, when I was in my beta phase, when I was in a very blue pill beta phase, when I was coming out of high school and just getting into my late teens and my early 20s, I constantly got the, well, you're a nice guy, and maybe if you're single when you're 28, you could just wait for me,
Oh, God.
and you'll be great. And it's funny when you hear stuff like that, because that women in their hindbrains, they have that plan. They already know that they want to go and fuck as many alpha dudes as they possibly can in their 20s when they're at their hottest, and they want you to wait for them when you're 28, 29 years old, because they know they'll be needing a nice guy like you to come around to be ready for them when they're there.
Guys are not fucking aware of this.
And that is subconscious, and it's written into women's, mental firmware.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, just as far as determining genuine interest, there's certain ways you can test for it, but I think the easiest way to do it is just to simply listen to answers and listen to enthusiasm. Yep. When we talk about like the consent laws and we want to have, enthusiastic consent all the time. Well, we all know that consent is really not enthusiastic all the fucking time. I mean, even pickup artists will tell you, you need to move past the last minute resistance and da-da-da. And you need to, if a lot of pickup artists will tell you that if a girl is not interested in you in the first place, that doesn't mean stop. That doesn't mean like just give it up and walk away and go do whatever. It means that you can calibrate and you can come back and you can, try it again and push past that. I'm not going to argue against that. I think that is, possibly true, so that women who didn't realize that they wanted to fuck you can be made to realize that they do want to fuck you. But I'm more of the opinion that you want the hell yeah. You want that really positive, super, submission is what it really is. It's a submission and an acknowledgement of you being an ideal for her. And again, that comes back to sexual market value and stuff like that. But I think that the best way to test it is to listen for stuff like that and see the dilation in the eyes and see does she get excited when you walk into the room, and just stuff like that. It's subtle sub communications that women give off. And you know what? It's not subtle to them, because like I said, they have a much greater capacity for communication. So when they do that, they're expecting you to go, oh, she does dig me.
Yep.
Right. And if you don't, she's like, what's wrong with this guy? Why doesn't he get it?
They can't understand that you don't communicate like them, that it's difficult to pick up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to some live questions. We've got you've got over 100 comments so far. There's been a ton of these things.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Not all the questions, but
I got about another half hour.
Okay.
Let's get to.
I don't think we'll go that long. We've been going for 2 hours now, so it's been a while.
I know, we're a little bit over now.
So here's the first one, simple one. When is preventative medicine available? And Audible. In the UK.
Okay. Preventive medicine is still in the audio recording stages right now. I have Sam Boda, who's the guy who did my first book, is doing the second book as well. I wish I could give you a concrete date right now, because I know we're in post-production with that. And I know that when we do an Audible book, Audible's very, very, very persnickety about the quality of the books that they got. I mean, and rightfully so. So they want to make sure that it's 100% and you're enunciating everything. And it's funny is like, it can take a long time to read a book, but then you have to go do the post-production for it. And then you have to go back and reread certain sections of it that were maybe less clear than others. And then what you have to do is you have to go and do all of the sound management and production stuff. And then you have to send it off to Audible, who has their team of experts listen to the entire book.
Wow.
Which can be, as long as 14, 20 hours.
Hours and hours.
So that takes a bit of time. And then if you don't get it back, then you go into production with it, and it takes a little while after that. But I do know that the initial reading is done. I know that they're doing the edits and they're doing the post-production right now. So I'm hoping that the Audible for preventive medicine will be available before July, maybe August.
Okay. That's
my best guess.
Next question then is following up right on that. When is the third book, The Rational Male Positive Masculinity, coming out?
Oh man.
Any word on that?
It's coming out. I'll just give you a roundabout date. It's going to be the end of May. But I will say I was hoping to have it out earlier, but again, like I said, I was hoping to have Andrew be a part of it. And so things didn't work out like that. So I've had to go back and sort of rewrite some things myself. And then it goes to edits. And I am going to insist that this particular book be edited at least twice, maybe 3 times by an outside editor, because that's the one thing people really string me up for, is my old editor on my first book, which will be the next priority that I have after the third book comes out, because I'm going to release an updated edition of the first book. It won't change anything content-wise. It's just I'm going to tighten things up for the grammar errors and just punctuation, and I'm going to increase the type size. And because I'll tell you something funny about the first book is I never intended to write a second or a third or fourth book. I was writing the first book because I really just thought that I was going to write that one book, and that was going to be it. That was going to be my tour de force, and I want to put as much into it as I possibly could. And I did not anticipate the popularity and the reach and just the resonance of that book even to this. I mean, for me to even be talking about this, we're like 3.5 years later, is just it's still amazing to me. It's still great, and I'm still in love with that book now. So I want to make that a little bit better of a product, and I'm also going to release a hardback version of the first book afterwards. So look for it in hardback and look for a second edition of it. That's going to be a little bit tighter and maybe one that you will be happy to give to your friends.
Totally. The story you just told us about, writing the first book and not anticipating how big of a hit it'd be. You thought that'd be all there would be to say. A lot of other speakers, particularly the health guys, have gone through a lot of the same chronological event. Mark Sisson, one of the biggest guys we've ever had, he actually intended to write his blog for 1 year, and then that would be it, because that'd be all there was. And then, of course, it's now like one of the biggest health websites in the world. So I think that's the direction you've gone, man.
I do that a lot too. Like I was thinking that I tend to, as even my business life, I tend to have like one big thing that I'm working on. It's my main project, and it's like the focus of my career is like whatever liquor brand I was on or whatever casino I was working for, and then I'll use that as a springboard into something else. And I have especially when it comes to liquor brands, I have a real tendency to make my main source of income my passive source of income as I move on to another thing. But the one thing that I've always had, as far as my side project, has always been the Rational Male, and it's something that has sort of taken on a life of itself. And I really think it's something I really wish I could do full time. I wish I could be a full-time writer. I wish I could do all that, but I'm really hesitant to do that because that would remove me from being out in the field. I need to be interacting with people. I need to be out at a club doing a promo. I need to be out at a concert. I need to be talking and watching and people watching all the time, because that's where my best ideas come from. Is just watching people interact. I mean, I couldn't speak to millennials the way I do right now if I wasn't out there, at the clubs or out there doing what I do just professionally. So I take what I do professionally and I make mental notes, or sometimes physical notes of it, and bring it back and turn it into a blog post. So I don't know. I think I probably have this book and one more after that for the Rational Male series. So I think it'll probably be a total of 4. Yeah. And then
let's remember that. I'm curious to see where that goes.
Yeah. Well, and then after that, I'm going to the other one is going to be a little bit more specialized than this one. This one's a much more generalized. It's positive. I don't want to leave guys hanging. I want guys to, like, I think in preventive medicine, I gave you this outline of how women are going to be at certain ages of their lives and what they're going through, because guys always said, Rollo, how come you weren't around when I was 21 and I made all these horrible mistakes? I wish I would have known all this shit when I was younger so I could have avoided all the pitfalls and everything. And so that's why I wrote that book, is so that people could go, okay, give this to your kids, or, okay, you're 30. This is what you can expect when you're 60, And so that's what prompted the second book. The third book, like Positive Masculinity, is really more designed to address give guys ideas about what they can do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to give you a bullet point list of things to do per se, but I definitely think there are some general ideas that guys can apply towards, seeing masculinity as a positive rather than being ridiculous, or rather than being something, negative or toxic masculinity and shit like that. It's really an effort to counter this. It's my feeling that the feminine imperative has made a deliberate effort to confuse men about masculinity, and to get them to question it all the time. Like, well, are you questioning my masculinity? Or are you secure in your masculinity? Or what does masculinity mean to you? It means that you're some chauvinist, mask that you wear, and they want to define it for you. And that's what I'd say in the book, is like the village, the feminine imperative village, how it takes a village to raise a kid. The village wants you to question your masculinity and wants you to think it's a negative. And I'm here to say that it's a positive. And I'm not like, I don't mean a positive in the good man project way. I mean, it's a positive in you need to own it, and you need to know what conventional masculinity is rather than what this feminized non-version of masculinity is. So that was the purpose for the third book. Okay. Then I'm thinking I might actually get into red pill fiction. I might write, because we're always complaining about, like, oh man, I hate the new Star Wars because it's so, Mary Sue femme-centric, and I hate this story, I hate that story. We're going to have the new female Ghostbusters, and the new female Ocean's 11 and stuff like that. I'm just like, fuck that. I mean, let's get back to like the real, pulp fiction. I don't mean the movie, but the real pulp fiction for guys who guys can get behind. And yes, there's going to be dudes who are going to embrace a conventional masculinity and have a red pill masculinity. And I think it's time for characters like that. And whether that's in, modern day life type stuff, or it's, some sort of fantasy type thing. I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to end up being a fantasy writer tomorrow, but I'm just saying that I have certain ideas, but I think that the characters that I want to develop are going to be red pill men and women who, well, not red pill women, and women who understand and appreciate and follow along like the reality of, that women actually do. They like the bad boys and they don't really like the nice guys, that kind of shit. So that's what I would like to explore, is doing some red pill fiction.
Now, you mentioned positive masculinity obviously a lot, and that's the subtitle of the new book. Your talk at the convention, is that going to be like a shortened or condensed version of the book?
Very much so. Yeah, it's going to certainly discuss. I mean, it'll help you. It'll be a good idea if you go to both of my talks. I mean, I'm not going to discourage anybody from going to my talks, but
I think everyone will attend both of them. I have a feeling they will.
The Hypergamy talk will be very similar to the one that I gave at the Man in Demand conference, and I think that is a fundamental foundation that guys need to understand. They understand why women are the way they are, and how hypergamy and ovulatory shift and all of these biological and psychological reasons lead to a society that is feminine centric. And that's where we start. My little private title for that speech is Hypergamy from the micro to the macro.
Okay.
So that's going to be that. But the positive masculinity one, you could certainly springboards off of that. But it will be about, again, giving guys ideas and really confronting what red pill masculinity is, and getting back to positive conventional masculinity, and not being afraid to embrace that, and to sort of dispel the bullshit that the feminine imperative has conditioned and raised boys into men to believe about masculinity.
Sorry, I'm reading some of the comments here. Some of them are just fucked up.
Wow.
One guy goes, "What do you do if you live in Florida and every chick is a psycho?" Like, what?
It's funny. I just to give you a quick joke about that. When you and I were talking about like your psycho Medusa, and I was telling you about the BPD woman that I was involved with for close to 4 years. There's one of the reasons that I didn't really realize that it was a psychosis, or it was a clinical psychological disorder, was because so many women like exhibit the exact same psychosis and disorder, that you're like, oh, well, that's just a chick being a chick. And so you forgive that, and you go, oh gosh. And then especially if you've been like raised blue pill, you think there's something wrong with you. You think that, oh gosh, I'm such a sexist chauvinist asshole, and I was brought up the wrong way. If only I could change myself and be a better person, then this psycho would accept me.
Well, it's also part of the disorders. Those are some of the tactics they're throwing at you.
Yeah, exactly.
This is deliberate. They want you to think that.
Yeah.
Yes,
I lived in Florida. I understand what you're saying.
So one of the final questions that was asked, I think it's a good one. It's from Aditya Kataria, and it says, "How will this new generation change with masculinity? Will we get more red pill men or more feminized men in the coming years?"
Yeah, if I have anything to say about it.
I mean, yeah, totally. We're on the same page there.
Well, why are we doing this conference? Well, I understand why there is that question. And again, that sort of goes back to the he versus she when we were talking about Hillary and Trump. That is the very fact that a guy would need to ask that question and would be wondering about that question is evidence of the conflict between the he and the she in society and in the larger, socio-psychological scope. I hope. I mean, right now, is the way things stand, and I cover this in the book. I cover in the parenting part of the third book how boys are raised to be gender loathing, and how to see anything that looks like conventional masculinity. Notice I'm not saying traditional masculinity. Conventional masculinity, anything that looks like that, they can't tear themselves away from thinking that it's bullying. And they can't, like when a man tests a boy, or when a boy tests a boy, or a man tests a man, and you get a sharp kick in the ass, or you're in the military, or you're in basic training, or you're in some team sport where you have to be kicked in the ass to be better. Where they say steel sharpens steel.
Oh yeah.
And men can sharpen men. We are taught from a very early age that the techniques that are used to do that, we are taught to conflate those with bullying and with being some macho bullshit asshole who gets off on hurting little boys because it makes him feel more like a man. And you'll notice that even in that little trope, feel more like a man, they're still degrading what a man is.
You can't even say man a lot of the time now.
Yeah,
you have to say
exactly.
guy or dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, is I had a guy, here I go. I had a young man, I listened to him in this conversation with one of my poor girls, and the guy had to be, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. And he's like talking to this girl, and he said something about how he owned up to it. He says, yeah, well, as a man, and he was referring to himself as a man, I'm a man. And and as soon as he said the word man and referred to himself, she started laughing.
Damn.
You're a man,
Damn.
And it's like, it was just the knee-jerk reaction. Or like when I was telling you about my tax lady who says, oh, rational male,
Yep.
And it's like, that is endemic in society. And although we're not supposed to believe that, we're supposed to believe that it's a man's world, and misogynists run everything, and sexist, boys clubs run businesses and Fortune 500 companies. We're supposed to believe that, but yet we still have this little girl facing down the big bull on Wall Street right now.
Yep.
And we demonize masculinity. We make it toxic. We teach little boys to hate being male.
Well, not only that, but we angelicize, femininity in women.
Yeah, and then we hold that as in a religious sense, and I'm just going to use evangelical Christianity here. We hold women as being closer to God. That they are more in touch with God than men are, and we have to measure up to the expectations of women if we want to get closer to God. And so when you have society like that, you're dealing with a feminine primary social order is what you're dealing with. And I was going to say is that this is endemic of how we raise and teach our kids, especially when it comes to boys. We teach them in female-centric, girl-correct ways, and if a boy acts out like a boy, we drug him, we sedate him, we give him Adderall, whatever. Or we say he's autistic, or we say he's got some sort of, something wrong with him. He's male. He's got boy disease. He's got testosterone in his veins, so he must be poisoned. And so I think it was, I had a guy send me the picture of this. I got a post of it, but it's also in the second book about, it was a picture of a presentation of some sort, like a projector presentation, about how they asked these boys who were in grade school, I believe they were like 8 or 9 years old, and what they disliked about being a boy. And all of the top reasons that these boys gave sounded exactly as if they came out of a women's studies, class. Oh, I can't be a mother, and the worst things about being a boy is that the worst things about being a boy were that they couldn't be girls. And we see that right now in, like I said, in our education, and we see that right now, particularly in transgenderism. And that's sort of my pet peeve right now. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know.
You call it gender eugenics, right?
It's gender eugenics. And if you ever, a really good book to read or to listen to is The Red Queen by Ridley. I can't remember his first name, but he goes into a very scientific, very statistically accurate reason as to why certain populations, and not just human populations, but populations of higher order animals, will opt to become female or male as environmental conditions make either one of those sexes advantageous or disadvantageous. And like, for instance, the easy one is in China with the one-child policy that they had for so long, everybody wanted a boy and they didn't want a girl, to the point where they would abort girls or they would drown girls so that they could just have the one single boy, because it was more advantageous environmentally and socially to have a boy, because they figured, well, the boy's going to bring in money, he's going to have more chance at success, and those little girls you're not going to have the chance for success. The thing is that it's shifted now, because there is a glut of boys, and the boys are jobless, and the boys have no prospects for the future, except for a very precious few of them who are higher social status, high earners within that society. And so it is more advantageous now to have a girl. And so, because that girl can bring prosperity to the family by marrying a high-end boy or a high-status boy.
Well, especially a Western guy.
Yes, so that's the easy, for Westernizing for sure. But if you look at where we're at right now, you will notice that the vast majority, and I believe it's anywhere between 80 and 90% of transgender children as young as 4 fucking years old are from boys to girls. And not just from we're supposed to believe that there's 21 or 28 different fucking genders, and that we're not a binary gender.
It's 48. It's 48.
Oh, 40. I'm sorry. They must have increased it since then. But we're supposed to believe that there's non-binary genders, yet the most common transition is from a boy to a binary girl.
And that's
why is that? Yeah, and it's celebrated. And it's chemically treated so that their hormones will be blocked, so that they will be blocked from becoming or developing into a boy for as long as possible.
And you mean specifically prepubescent is what's
yes, I'm talking as young as 5, 6, 7 years old, and chemically treating them for this.
Hey, and I know you have to get off soon. I wanted to switch topics real quick. One last thing. What are your thoughts on Jordan B. Peterson? Someone asked that in the comments.
What are my thoughts on Jordan B. Peterson? I think the man is absolutely brilliant. I think from his from what I've seen of him, and from what I understand why he is sort of the sweetheart of a lot of guys in the red pill right now, in the manosphere right now, because he's standing up against that transgenderism, and that's great. And I agree 100% with what he says about his evaluations, I guess, with transgender nonsense that's going on college campuses. I think that it's a crime. Well, it would be a crime if he were to lose his job over that, because we need to, like I said, we need to test ideas in the crucible of open discussion rather than shouting them down or silencing them. I think that Jordan B. Peterson and I probably share a lot of the same ideas when it comes to stuff like that. Obviously very well versed statistically and biologically and stuff. If there is one area that I disagree with him on, it is he's very blue pill. And I hate to say that, but
he's still clinging to it.
He's still clinging to that blue pill in the same way that a lot of the MRAs I know are very, we want egalitarian equalism, and that's an ideal when it's not. I also understand, whenever I listen to the guy and I listen to some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth, and it's a lot of the same gender tropes that I hear coming from a feminine primary or feminine imperative, people who promote that. And I think that he's still very much blue pill when it comes to intergendered, intersexual dynamics. But when it comes to pretty much everything else, I think the guy's spot on. And that's one of the things that really kills me about listening to the guy, because I think he's fantastic, other than that. And if he could just make that little push over.
Well, it just goes to show that even being as intelligent as he is, and he's brilliant. I agree. I've looked at a lot of his videos too. He's still steeped in blue pill idealism and that world. It's hard to get out of it.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same disappointment I had with Warren Farrell. As Warren Farrell has this encyclopedic knowledge of gender differences and intersexual dynamics. The book he has called Why Men Are the Way They Are that should be a precursor to the red pill Bible or whatever, that is just spot on. It was written back in 1986, and the guy has had this knowledge in his head for, since then. And I really am disappointed with the guy, because every time I talk to him, he sounds like a feminist, but a reverse feminist, in that he believes that, we should, from a top-down position, change society to be more equal to men. And I'm saying that you are never going to have that equality, because men and women are different. And that, there you go with private man again, men and women are different. Yep. And they are different, but they are, and none of them, men are not better than women are not better than men, but we are different, and we are meant to be complementary to each other, and we evolved to be complementary towards each other.
And when you say different, you mean very, very fundamentally different.
Fundamentally different, like psychologically different, like biologically different, endocrinological different.
Well, that just sounds misogynistic to me, Rollo. Rollo. So I mean,
yeah, well, and it does, and it sounds misogynistic and bitter and angry, and you know why it does? Because everyone has been brought up from a very early age to think that we're all the same, that we're all just, we all have the same potential, and yet we're still going to turn boys into girls, and we all have the same potential, and we're all the same except for the biology and the plumbing, but we're all the same egalitarian wise, we're all the same blank slates, but yet, women will be the first people to tell you that women have a better capacity for language, and in some cases that's an advantage. That's fantastic. I'm glad. That's a strength that women have, is they have a better capacity for communication. But men have a better capacity for rational thought, and have a better capacity for spatial pattern recognition and spatial definition. And they've got, we can throw a spear right out of the womb, because we have that in our firmware. But we'll deny that about men, but we'll be happy to accept whatever's flattering to women.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Rollo, it's been an absolute fucking blast having you on. I'd love to have you on again sometime before the event.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, I look forward to meeting you later this year in Florida at the 21 Convention 2017.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Do you have any final message for the guys attending?
No, just look forward to it. And like I said, the book will be available at the end of May, and hopefully you'll have it and have read it by the time we get there in the end of September.
Fuck yeah. I'd love to get a copy as soon as possible, man.
Yep, definitely.
I've been meaning to ask you that. So
for sure. Okay.
Rollo, thanks for coming on, man.
Yep, anytime.
Yep. Everyone, make sure you visit Rollo at therationalmale.com. You can actually meet him this year at the 21 Convention 2017. He's given 2 talks. You can get tickets to that event if you don't have them yet in the card at the top right hand of the video, or in the description, or you can visit the 21convention.org. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rollo. And I'll talk to you soon.
See you then. Bye.